Now we got to define an index, right? What is an index? They also call them values. All right. Y'all sees, thanks for becoming the #1 gifter. Good to see you. Hey, Diggity Dog. Good to see you. All right, we can do a little note about the steps involved, right? So when we're looking to find the correct PCS code, we are to follow the steps, right? So step 1, use index. The index equals first 3 characters. Step 2 equals use table to find values of 4 through 7. So we're using indexes and tables. purpose of the index is to locate your table. Clear. The index is going to need your general procedure name, and then our table's purpose is to find the rest of the characters. The table So the top of the table, because the table's split up into two parts, the top of the table, the upper part has the 1 through 3 characters at the top, and then the second section of the table each row of the lower part of the table specifies the valid combination of values for characters 4 through 7. So there's like an index here in the front, right? You'll look up, right, your abdominal plasty. You're doing an abdominoplasty, right? So we'll look under the table OWOF, right? And then we go back here to find our OW. Keep going because we're OS, right? We got to go find OW. OW. There's an OW. OWOF. OWOF. All right, we're getting close. We went a little too far. OWOF. Where is our OWOF? Oh yeah, there's two tables on that page. That's why. Okay. OWOF, and then we look at our repair for our abdominoplasty, and then characters 4, 5, 6, and 7 will decide on, are we in the peritoneal cavity? Are we in the retroperitoneum? 7 will decide on, are we in the peritoneal cavity? Are we in the retroperitoneum? We decide if our procedure is open, closed, or some other route into the body. And then there'll be some other different values depending on what we're doing in that area. So really kind of cool for sure. So I put our section, right? So character 1 is our section, character 2 will be our body system, character 3 will be our route of operation, 4 will be an extended body part, 5 will be our approach, open, percutaneous, closed procedure, 6 will be our device, and character number 7 is our qualifier. We've got definitions of all of that in our conventions, and I put some more steps that we need to find the root word. Then we need to find our subterms, which is our body part, then our procedure, and then we do some cross-referencing in our index. But this stuff is going to be just as clear as mud for sure. We do have a table of contents in here, so if we're doing new technology or if we're only dealing with muscles, we'll know some of our conventions, right? If we're only doing obstetrics, if we're doing only our Nuclear medicine is in one area. Respiratory, central nervous system, arteries, mouth and throat procedures, muscles, tendons, urology, joints. So it's handy to read and look over this so you can see what kind of procedures are being done. So it's handy to read and look over this so you can see what kind of procedures are being done. Be sure to don't code components of procedures separately. Yeah, it says that. So if we're doing an excision of the right lower arm and wrist tendon and it's an open procedure, let's see if we can't locate the main term in the index. Can I do excision? Is that a thing? Yeah, excision. Okay, excision of the... What are we doing? We're doing of the excision of the... What are we doing? We're doing of the wrist, right? Excision. Excision, tendon. Excision, tendon. To go find lower arm. There it is, lower arm and wrist, and then we need to find if we're right or left. It said right, so our first digits in the table we gotta find is LOB, whatever that is, 5 or S, LOB to complete the code. So let's go find LOB in our tables, right? So back here, we got to find our LOB, right? So I went too far, I guess. Right? OLB, OLB. OLB, there's D. OLB, OLB. OLB, there's D. OLB. There it is. So then we found our OLB, wrong one, right here, OLB, right, found that one, and then we know it's open approach, right, and we're doing the lower arm and wrist of the right, right? So we're going to add a 5 to our digit, right? OLB 5. And then we move across. What's our procedure? Open LB 5. and then we move across. Was our procedure open, per endoscopic? And it was open approach. So then our fifth character of our digit is going to be OLB 50. And then our device. Did we use a device? Was it diagnostic or no qualifier, right? It does not say anything about our procedure being diagnostic. We have no choice but that our sixth character will be a Z. That's a given. And then because it's not diagnostic, we're not just going in there just to look-see. We're actually going in there to do the tendon issue. So Z will be our next character. So let me put this in this. So as I do examples when I'm trying to learn PCS, what I like to do is pick one color code to follow an example and go through the book as far as the index, right? And then through the table, and then write them out. We were doing a EXCISION of the right lower of the right lower arm and wrist tendon open procedure. That way I know all the yellows were that example, and then when I come through and I might do another example, do another color code and write another example. And I'm also going to write the example over here next to the index, because I had to use both of them here too. So I like to follow, you know, everything that I do. I like to follow, you know, everything that I do. Got my yellow, I've got my excision. That way, every practice question that I fill in the blank and add in, and I figure out what the answer is, and when I figure out if I've done it correctly or not, then I mark my steps on how I found that answer. And when I figure out if I've done it correctly or not, then I mark my steps on how I found that answer. It gets easier. Excision, right, lower, arm, and wrist open procedure. That took me here. It took me to page number 438 for my table. I think I'm going to write it right here in the yellow. Page 438. That's where my table was. So now anytime I see it, I've got it right here. And then when I get here, if I want to know what page number my index was on to find this, it was page 85. That's way I've got my steps. I already know what page number I'm on, so I don't need to mark that for this table. But if I wanted to go backwards and figure out how I found those first three digits, that was on page 85. And then when I do another example, 3 digits, that was on page 85. And then when I do another example, and then I'll refer them back to each other, and eventually I will learn about these patterns. But our complete answer for this question will be, do they call these zeros or O's? I don't know. I don't know that particular thing. I gotta find out. O L B 5 O L B 5 Z. There's my answer. And I'm also going to write that same answer at the end of this one. Just because, what if I get to an exam question and I've already done this problem, and if and I don't have to go to 438, then I've got the answer written out right here too. So that's kind of nice. I got excision all up in the 38. Then I've got the answer written out right here too. So that's kind of nice. I got excision all up in the way. Get rid of you. I don't need you in my way. Get rid of you. I don't need you in my way. Next time I'll write it over better. All right. 5 O Z. There we go. Now I've got the answer written down in both places, page numbers, and I've got my steps marked on how I figured out how to do the PCS coding. So very cool, I think. Thank you for the 400 taps. Thank you to the 4 followers. The PCS coding. So very cool, I think. Thank you for the 400 taps. Thank you to the 4 followers on. If you have specific questions that you want to ask, all you got to do is click on this service button right down there. If you click on that, you can fill out the form that pops up, and I'll answer your question. Just fill it out and then hit send, and I'll answer you back. Pretty cool little service feature that they put on here for us on TikTok. So if you've got a question you don't want to ask in chat, whatever, there you go. I wish I could get this stupid thing to go off. I told it not to this time, but now I don't know how to get it off of there. I'll eventually figure it out. I go live on Mondays and Fridays. Jen and Nader, thank you for the gifts. You're always so awesome. Good to see you. This is for what certification? CCS. CCA probably. CCS, it's AHIMA's. Medical coding, kind of like an inpatient thing. Yeah. If you ever wanted to do AHIMA's CCS one and work inpatient coding, you gotta know your PCS. So we went in here, we added some notes, just some definitions of things. What's a table? What's an index? What are our steps? When did they first create this stuff? How many characters are there? There's no decimals. Put in a few examples. And then did some highlighting on these pages about the official conventions of the PCS book, and then wrote our steps again one more time right here on how to find them, right? Some of them are marked like step 4 or, right? Some of them are marked like step 4 or doing an insertion, that letter is going to be H. If you're doing subcutaneous tissue, that letter is going to be J. Our root operation, of course, starts with that O. Put some examples of what the medical terms might be, you know, like nuclear medicine or imaging type, those kind of things. Here again, I wrote down the different meanings of each character of a PCS code. There's 7. The different meanings of each character of a PCS code. There's 7. And then we went through a code. There's 7. And then we went through an how to go to the index, look for your particular word, right, for appendix, or not appendix, we were doing the wrist tendon, right? Appendix is what I want to do next maybe, but we were doing an excision, so we just went to the word excision, and then we found our first OLB, and then we went to OLB and found the rest of our 7 characters. And then we wrote down our page numbers for vice versa, and then our final answer. Then we wrote down our page numbers for vice versa, and then our final answer for that procedure. Yeah, pretty cool. All right, guys. I'm going to switch books and restart the live because I'm going to do cardiovascular CPT pictures for my notes for 2025, and maybe I can help answer some questions for that. That will be for all coding areas, you know, CPC, all of them. So that will be for all coding areas, you know, CPC, all of them. So hopefully that will help somebody. I think I've got most of them done. But I'll end this live so I can download it and label it as PCS, and then we'll come right back and we're going to make some more photographs of my cardiovascular notes for 2025. I'll be right back.